The world is watching in astonishment as an unexpected turn unfolds in U.S. China relations. After bombastic declarations of a trade war, one of its initiators, in the view of observers, is showing signs of retreat, sparking a wave of criticism and ridicule in the international community. Just days ago, the rhetoric was full of intransigence, but now notes of reconciliation are being sounded. After the introduction of unprecedented tariffs of 245% on Chinese goods, the possibility of reducing them by more than half is being considered. This move raises questions, especially against the backdrop of no visible concessions from China. The reasons for such a sudden change of course remain a matter of conjecture. In American agricultural circles, business communities, and even among major donors, there is bewilderment, while in Beijing, they seem unable to believe their luck. What is happening today could turn into the largest crisis of confidence in America's economic reputation in recent history. And this, it seems, is only the beginning of the impending chaos. Trump's unexpected concession in the trade confrontation with China has triggered a real storm in Chinese social networks. In a matter of hours, a viral hashtag mocking the American president spread across the network, portraying him not as a skilled strategist, but as someone who could not withstand pressure from Beijing. The scale of this phenomenon is staggering. The hashtag has garnered over 150 million views, becoming one of the fastest-growing political topics of the year. The main message, actively disseminated on platforms such as WeChat and Douyin, is simple and ruthless. Trump surrendered first. In Beijing, officials seem to be reveling in what is happening. State media are actively covering the viral publications, and commentators are openly cheering that Xi Jinping has gained the upper hand over the American leader. A pithy phrase about how today's Trump prevailed over yesterday's quickly spread across Chinese online platforms, causing a wave of ironic comments. But for Washington, this was not a laughing matter, but a real shock, exacerbated by chaotic and contradictory signals coming directly from within the presidential administration. The disagreements manifested not only in virtual space, but also spilled onto the streets of Washington, exposing a deep split and confusion in the head of state's team. While Trump confidently told reporters about daily and active negotiations with China, his own Treasury Secretary conveyed a completely different reality. He admitted that no meetings were planned in the near future, and the parties were only waiting for the moment to start a constructive dialogue. Such a blatant contradiction left America's allies and adversaries wondering, who actually determines the trade policy of the United States? The main question, like a nagging swarm, swirled in the air. If American leaders cannot agree even on the very fact of negotiations, how do they plan to conclude any agreements at all? And this question sounded louder and louder, like the growing rumble of an approaching storm. Behind the scenes of the political stage, the situation looked even more dire than it appeared on television screens and newspaper pages. Just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump loudly announced the introduction of impressive 145% tariffs on Chinese goods, as if demonstrating the indestructible power of the American economy. However, as expected, experts were quick to warn. Such a radical step is fraught with weakening the U.S. economy itself. The forecast loomed disappointing, a fall in GDP by at least 1.5% within the next year. But the political message was clear. Trump does not intend to yield an inch. And suddenly, a striking somersault. As if by magic, messages flashed in the information space that the president, it turns out, is thinking about reducing tariffs by more than half. And this, without any prior negotiations, without new concessions from Beijing. It sounded incredible, almost like a political joke, but official confirmation soon followed. Senior officials confirmed that Trump is indeed considering a serious tariff rollback, requiring nothing in return. For a politician who built his reputation on the image of a tough and uncompromising negotiator, such a turn looked, to put it mildly, discouraging. Analysts were completely perplexed, trying to solve the puzzle. Some dubbed it nothing less than negotiating against oneself, a gross mistake that even novice diplomats try to avoid. Others suggested that Trump, feeling increasing internal pressure, is desperately seeking at least some quick victory, even at the cost of losing strategic leverage. The matter was not limited to just reducing tariffs. A striking change occurred in Trump's behavior. The belligerent rhetoric towards China, previously portrayed as a cunning deceiver, suddenly shifted to almost peaceful statements. This abrupt and unexpected turn raised a legitimate question in Washington. Is there any strategy at all? And if so, who is privy to its details? Amidst this confusion, Beijing wasted no time, quickly seizing the moment. While the world tried to make sense of the sudden change in the United States' course, China acted without delay. State-controlled mass media flooded the airwaves and social networks with stories portraying Trump as a weak and inconsistent leader. In one viral video, he was compared to a weather vane, spinning erratically in the wind. This blow was aimed not only at Trump's reputation but also at the prestige of the entire United States. As reported by the Wall Street Journal, Trump's team was considering reducing tariffs without achieving any tangible results, new commitments from China, an end to subsidies, protection of American technologies, or any significant trade reforms. It seemed that the United States was ready to abandon the principled positions it had so stubbornly defended over the past 2 years. America's allies watched with concern. In the capitals of Europe and Asia, diplomats hastily revised their strategies, wondering, if even a powerful nation like the United States cannot withstand the pressure from Beijing, why should others try? This damage could be long-term, forever changing the perception of America's power in the world. When a country yields its positions, it only provokes new, even more serious challenges. And in Beijing, they understood this perfectly. Even within the Republican Party, which Trump represented, discontent was growing. Senators whose political careers were built on a tough line towards China, such as Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton, expressed their criticism, albeit restrained. Hawley stated directly that concessions without achieving concrete results would only encourage further aggression from China and other countries. At the same time, an atmosphere of jubilation reigned in Beijing. Xi Jinping's government was already feeling increasing internal pressure. The slowdown in economic growth was generating more and more rumors. However, Donald Trump's sudden departure from affairs opened a window of opportunity for Chinese strategists to reshape the global agenda. China had not only withstood the trade war but was also winning it. Looking back, it becomes obvious that the viral hashtag that rapidly spread on Chinese social networks was not just a funny joke. It became a symbol of the dizzying transformation of perception on the international stage. But the deepest concern among American allies and officials is related to something else. The damage done will be extremely difficult to repair. Trust, once undermined, is restored with great difficulty. In a world where instability is becoming the new norm, the United States can least afford to appear as an unreliable partner. However, it is not only the reputation of the United States abroad that is under fire. Economic chaos is increasingly hitting American businesses at home. The patience of entrepreneurs is running out, replaced by open resentment. It is not surprising that the endless fluctuations of the Trump administration around tariffs have created a wave of uncertainty that no serious market participant can ignore. Threats against China were replaced by sudden retreats, plunging the economy into chaos. After all, the economy, by its very nature, lives by planning, forecasts, and stability. Such chaotic policies become not just a nuisance but a real threat to the entire system. The problem is not whether the tariffs themselves are good or bad. The main trouble is the confusion they create. Companies and investors need predictability, clear rules of the game, to make informed decisions, whether to build a factory, hire new employees, or launch a new product. When decisions change weekly, it destroys the very foundation of business. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, representing the interests of millions of companies, openly expressed dissatisfaction with such wavering, emphasizing that uncertainty is detrimental to investment. Analysts at J.P. Morgan noted in their reports that the constant tariff threats from Trump increasingly resemble not a strategy, but irresponsible improvisation, jeopardizing the stability of the economy. The market reaction to such statements was immediate and painful. Each new mention of tariffs turned stock indices into a kind of roller coaster, wiping out billions of dollars of capitalization in a matter of minutes. Experts at Goldman Sachs have repeatedly warned that the escalation of the trade confrontation significantly increases the risk of recession in the American economy. And it's not just about dry numbers. When a business loses clear planning horizons, it simply freezes in anticipation. Investments are curtailed, hiring new employees ceases, and the implementation of promising projects is postponed indefinitely. The trust of investors and entrepreneurs melts away like a house of cards in a gust of wind. The National Federation of Independent Business has recorded a sharp decline in optimism among small businesses, directly linking this to fears of an escalating trade war. Perhaps nowhere is this tension felt as acutely as on Wall Street. There, each successive wave of tariff news generates real shockwaves that spread throughout the financial markets. And as shocking as it may sound, it is impossible to deny the obvious. As soon as the president hints at a possible easing of tariff pressure on China, Wall Street breathes a sigh of relief. When a message about a potential respite appears on social media, the Dow Jones Industrial Average can soar by more than 500 points in a single trading session. The enthusiastic cries of investors echoed through the financial markets, but behind this jubilation lay a disturbing truth. American business is so deeply intertwined with China that this dependence may have become chronic. The U.S. economy is permeated with Chinese influence, like blood vessels. Apple, a symbol of American technological progress, is inextricably linked to Chinese manufacturing capacity. iPhones, MacBooks, and iPads are assembled through a vast network of Chinese suppliers, where Foxconn plays a key role. Any escalation of geopolitical tensions immediately affects Apple's stock, causing it to tremble. Tim Cook, the company's CEO, has visited Washington numerous times, trying to convey the idea that moving production chains to other countries is a task that takes many years, if it is even feasible. But Apple is just the tip of the iceberg. Nike sneakers, goods on Walmart shelves, General Motors cars, all of this is heavily dependent on China. In 2023, the Chinese market accounted for more than 40% of GM's global sales, making it more significant for the company than the domestic U.S. market. Even Boeing, the aircraft manufacturing giant, has high hopes for China. Analysts predict that China will become a key driver of demand for new aircraft, providing up to 17% of the global volume. In a situation where the aviation industry, barely recovered from the devastating impact of the pandemic, cannot afford to make a mistake, a disturbing question arises. Can American business withstand it if China suddenly stops deliveries? The vulnerability extends far beyond just finished products. Rare earth metals, indispensable in the production of smartphones and modern fighter jets, are almost monopolistically controlled by China, which accounts for about 70% of the global market. The cessation of supplies of these resources could cause not just an economic shock, but a full-scale national security crisis. Even in the competition for consumer preferences, the dependence of the United States on China becomes obvious. Giants like Starbucks, McDonald's, and Disney have invested billions of dollars in expanding their presence in the Chinese market, betting on the growth of the local middle class. By 2024, Starbucks had opened more coffee shops in China than in any other country except the United States itself, and Shanghai Disneyland had become one of the corporation's most profitable international projects. Wall Street, contrary to popular belief, does not harbor any sympathy for the Chinese regime. The reason for its support lies in a simple fear for its own well-being. Every escalation in trade relations between the United States and China, whether it be the introduction of new tariffs or diplomatic disagreements, exposes cracks in the fragile system that connects American corporations with the vital Chinese economic artery. This fear is not just an abstract threat, but a very tangible reality, reflected in falling stock prices and deteriorating financial performance. And most worryingly, there is no easy alternative. Yes, countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico are seeking to seize some of the manufacturing capacity leaving China, but none of them can match it in scale, developed infrastructure, and efficiency. It turns out that the American business empire stands on a foundation that it no longer controls, and that foundation is beginning to show serious cracks. What will happen if it finally collapses? What will happen to the American dream itself? Some Republicans, like Mike Lawler, are trying to mitigate the situation, arguing that tariffs were just a tool in trade negotiations, not the last, devastating weapon. Even hardliners acknowledge what concerns leading economists and business leaders. The short-term damage has already been done, and the long-term consequences could be even more severe. This has exposed an unpleasant truth. The strategy of tariff pressure, which seemed so effective, has lost its value. What was conceived as a decisive campaign to force concessions from Beijing has turned into a blow to themselves. And Trump, previously known for his stubbornness, now seems to be in a situation where he is forced to quietly fade into the background, with no tangible victories behind him to justify the risk taken. So, where is America now? It seems to be stuck halfway through the trade war it unleashed, without a clear compass, without a coherent plan, and, most alarmingly, without a final trump card up its sleeve. In this regard, to stay abreast of developments, it is crucial to monitor the further steps of countries, as their decisions may have an even greater impact on the global economy, changing it beyond